Hello, everybody, and welcome to another arc review for My Hero Academia. I am Oceaniz, and I'm once again joined by my best friend IanWaffles. Hey, man, how you doing?
Dude, it's so good to be back. Always up to talk about MHA, especially with the anime back.
Oh
So
yeah.
thank you just very much for having me again, dude.
Hey, no problem. It's always a blast having you here, and from what I've been hearing, the people also enjoy it. So win-win for everyone. Uh,
Win-win.
just very quick to address it immediately. This includes spoilers for the anime and for the manga. So if you're not caught up, this is a danger zone. You have to be responsible yourself. We will reference things all across the entire story. So be responsible. But with that out of the way, what are we talking about today, Ian?
All right. So last week, last podcast, we talked about I think the first 20 chapters up to the USJ, and now we finally hit basically the arc that, as far as the anime and also kind of in the manga community, kind of put MHA on the map as like, okay, MHA is something to pay attention to and something that a lot of people love. I know it's where I jumped in, and it's definitely just a fan favorite arc. So we're talking about the sports festival.
That's right. The arc that basically, at least in the anime form specifically, catapulted MHA from a, popular show to literally so popular it sometimes edges out SpongeBob in the United States.
Yes, and it's always like at least 5 volumes in our top 10 most sold literature in the United States.
Yeah, it's actually crazy because I remember I watched that happen in real time pretty much because I had caught up to MHA right around the time when I think the last episode of season 1 came out. And then when season 2 came out, I remembered it as a show that was really cool and that helped me through a bit of a tough time. So I was like, oh yes, let me check this out. Not really expecting, super crazy stuff to happen. And I was watching it weekly with a friend, and then the Todoroki episode drops, and holy shit, like, within a week, it was everywhere. Like, it was so crazy to see that happen just, like, in front of your eyes. And I'm, maybe that's part of the reason why I'm so attached to it as well. Like, I've seen it grow, right? Like, I didn't get to do that with pretty much any other show, where most of them were already popular when I got into them. But this one went from, as I said, a popular show to, the new juggernaut, the new hot thing. And it stayed that way for a long time.
It gives you like a feeling of kind of like pride and like, oh, I was there.
Yeah.
And it's a connection point, especially if you had a friend watching it with you too. I'd imagine that makes it extra special.
Well, I mean, that friend, we were at that point already had been friends for like 5 years or something like that. So we had plenty of connections. But yeah, I remember when we watched Todoroki Ignite, we were like, dog, whoa.
What? Fire!
Yeah, exactly.
Cube ice!
It was crazy, yeah. And of course, that was also what kind of catapulted me into the manga, where after the sports festival, the anime took 2 weeks break, and in those 2 weeks, I just binged the manga. Which is also funny because my sister actually had already caught up to the manga way before that. Like, she had been into it for a while.
Oh.
And then, and she kept bullying me that I was an anime only. And then...
As she should.
As she should. And then after the sports festival arc came out and I binged the manga, she was like, oh, so you're caught up. And I'm like, yeah, cool. And now, flash forward to now, I am caught up, obviously. And she, I think she's stuck, at My Villain Academia or something like that. Like, she just completely forgot about it. And, how the turns have tabled.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and she's like, ugh, villains. Who would even enjoy this?
No, I think she enjoys it. I think, I don't know, maybe it's just a thing with how manga and stuff like that is here in Switzerland. It's like, it's not something that is big enough for you to constantly think about. So unless you're obsessed like me, I know plenty of people who just read a little bit and then they forget about it, which totally fine.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess if did you have anything more to say about that?
No, that was just my anecdote to make myself personable. you know.
Cool. Well, I'll make myself a person too. So basically, finally. So with me with MHA in season 2, it actually has quite a few special places. So I guess I can get it to it now. So at the time, it was probably one of my first anime I was kind of getting into with my brother, and just kind of to have something that we like to do, because he's a sporty guy and I'm the nerdy guy. But he saw My Hero and he was just like, oh, that looks kind of cool, and so we watched it together, and so we got to kind of bond over that and then watch a few other anime afterwards. But once we got to season 2, I remember when I had first seen a bit of season 2, I was at a friend's house and he was watching it, and we had come over, so he'd stopped it, and I was like, oh, hey, that's My Hero Academia, because I had already seen season 1, and I saw that they were doing school stuff, and I was like, ugh, school stuff, who even cares? And so it basically went off the map in my brain for like forever. And then around the time that the Todoroki stuff was getting big popular and all that stuff, and I was starting to see analysis videos for Todoroki, I was just like, yeah, whatever. And then I basically just kind of turned it on at one point, and it was kind of like I had rediscovered it for myself, basically. I had kind of chosen to go back to it. And once we finally got to the Todoroki fight, so there had been this period of my life for, I'd say, around like 3 years, where like I just didn't cry. And it wasn't because, I was a manly man. I just didn't cry. Like, nothing, and to be fair, nothing tragic ever really happened in my life through that period. But couldn't really cry at movies. My favorite show of all time has all these big emotional moments, which is Avatar: The Last Airbender. Never made me cry, never made me feel much of anything. But seeing Deku, basically the visceralness of him breaking his body to win, and then finding at a certain point that, he's actually, at some point, even if he doesn't realize it, he's moved into trying to help this boy who's just all kinds of messed up in his head, just trying to get him to accept himself and be who he wants to be. And when All Might said, young Midoriya, don't tell me you were trying to save young Todoroki this whole time, I actually cried for the first time in like 3 years, and since then, anything in a show will make me cry. Like, it literally feels like the floodgates actually broke. And I legitimately, so that's, if you ever want to know like the baseline, like, monkey brain Ian reason he loves Deku so much is Deku literally sort of in a way saved me and made me more of a person, so like Todoroki. So literally there's nothing the character can kind of do at any point to make me turn on him, because all the moments that matter to me have happened. But as far as season 2 as a whole, it really did start to feel like a show that I truly felt like connected to me in my heart, and just the idea of the fact that Deku would do all this horrible stuff to his body just so someone would just accept themselves, and because he has this great power and he's using it on himself, he has to hurt himself. It's the epitome of self-sacrifice for just like a stupid little game that doesn't matter. But he transformed it into trying to help this person, and he received permanent damage. It's like I said in the first video, where it's Izuku Midoriya feels like a hero. He's one of the few heroes who I look at him and I'm like, he would save me too, even if literally he almost can't. He would have to kill himself to do it. And it's just great. It's what I love about the arc, and at the end of the day, no matter what we say in this podcast, that will always be probably one of the most important moments from anime in my entire life. So, or entertainment in general. So,
well, I mean, first off, absolutely thank you for sharing that with us. That's a very big, like, emotional thing. I know that I as well went through like a period of my life where like I'm definitely not a manly man, but I also couldn't like cry at things that I probably should have been able to. So it's really great to have stuff like that, like anime or movies or anything that can just, kickstart you. Because I mean, there's like a deeper discussion here, obviously, but I feel like everyone goes through that phase where they kind of have to find their own emotional threshold, and we often find that through media, I feel like. So Deku saving Todoroki during his fight is definitely like a good, like, it's a good choice for a big emotional wake up call, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Very good vintage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've reached the peak of anything I could say in this video, so it's all downhill from here. You can don't worry, Oceaniz will keep it up. He's the big essay man.
Oh no! Have you ever heard me speak without a script? Have you ever tuned into Shonen and Chill? I talk nonsense when I don't have it written in front of me.
Fair enough. But all right, so what do you wanna jump into, man?
I would say now that we've kind of talked about our experiences with it, let's jump into the story's experiences with this arc, as in like what the arc does to transform My Hero Academia, and how that kind of relates to the sort of threshold quality this arc has for many of its fans. Because to me, this arc was not just where I got personally invested, but it was also the arc where I first felt like, okay, this is going somewhere. Like season 1 and everything up to USJ, we mentioned it in the last video, feels a little like just throwing a bunch of stuff at us and hoping that we stick around to find out if we care.
Right.
Like, there's very little rhyme or reason at the start. This is the superhero society. You have the school that does these things. You have this villain who has seemingly no real identity, and they punch a little, and there's some cool stuff in between.
Yeah, your only real through line is, do you care about Deku becoming a great hero?
Exactly. And I think the sports festival is the one arc that really ramps up the substance of the story, because immediately, even just in the opening blurb of the sports festival arc, we get some interesting world building and lore to My Hero. The fact that the Olympics have pretty much decayed and are completely unpopular at this point because quirks aren't allowed in it and no one wants to watch that shit. And then you get into the actual sports festival itself and all the rationalizations as to why certain sections are done the way they are. How the cavalry battle forces you both to be competitive and cooperative, whereas the race makes you kind of literally step over your friends and whatnot. And then you have even more impactful stuff like Endeavor and his presence, where I feel like it's the first time we get this idea of the system actually encourages some really shitty stuff, which is then also encouraged and reinforced with Shinso, who also makes his debut in this arc. So yeah, if we can talk a little bit about what you think about this idea regarding the sports festival, I think that'll be a good starting point.
Yeah, I think I kind of mentioned to you a bit before we start, but I feel like the sports festival was in this perfect position to finally let the side characters come into their own and it not feel like it, in a sense, world building at the school, and bringing in all these characters to finally step up. So you have characters like Shinso, you have characters like Monoma, you have characters like Todoroki and Ida and Uraraka, who in the first season or the first section of the story either didn't exist or they were just kind of like, Ida's the funny man, Uraraka's the nice girl, Todoroki, he's got cool ice powers, I think. That seems like what he was doing. Stuff like that. And so the sports festival, because its foundation is this idea of Deku, hey, buddy, it's time to get good. And if you like Deku, then you're cool with that. You want to see Deku show to the world, I am here. But if you're not into that, if you're not into Deku, then you're like, yes, finally, get good, Deku, be a main character I can like. And so that's your foundation of Deku stepping into the world. And what's cool about it is that then all these side characters are coming after him. You have Todoroki coming after him. You have Endeavor looking at him. You have Uraraka and Ida and Shinso and all these characters who are kind of looking at him. You have Bakugo coming at him. And it basically elevates all the side characters to where it's like, you've got some chutzpah, kid. You guys are going places. You're really trying here. And so it allows for basically the hero side and the school side to, I think, the most naturally merge in the series, because you have the hero world, which is Endeavor and All Might, and they are bringing that side into things. But then you have the school setting, which is basically the sports festival itself, and then you have the human personal relationships with Todoroki and Deku and their connections to the hero world. And I think that Sports Festival was in this perfect position to not only expand the world, but expand the cast in a way that the audience would care about, because when you're writing a story, there's a threshold for when, you have to manage audience expectations, right? Mm-hmm. And with My Hero, you have all these characters, and we don't know who's important. So you look at Birdman, you look at, Pretty Boy Zuko, and all this stuff, and you're just like, okay, but are they, what do they do? What's their cool powers? And you're not invested in Shigaraki enough yet to want to go to the villains. And so when they're all stepping up like this, you're excited for it. And of course, it's in a competition setting. A lot of people love sports. They like the thrill of like Ida being like, no, Deku, I'm gonna do my own thing, or Uraraka being like, no, I'm gonna step out and become my own person. And so it really, to tie back into your world building point, it really does feel like the world is finally expanding thanks to this school setting, and the actual events are thrilling and exciting enough, and there's enough dynamics going on that they can all branch off each other, and you never feel something like the joint training arc where each round it's resetting your investment. And I would watch all these reactions where they say, ever since Todoroki came into the story or into his round, the fights have been good. And he just was honest, and he said, the reason that is because I care about Todoroki. I don't care enough about Momo or Shinso, for me personally, so I care more about this. And that's what I think this arc does so well, is it allows you to care about everybody, because everybody is new to you, which means they all have infinite potential to be interesting, and there's no hero killer stain, there's no ascended Shigaraki, there's no overhaul holding you back, being like, but why am I still at school? You know? And so that's what I think it does so well. I hope in any way that connected to your point.
No, it definitely did, because you mentioned the notion of, the threshold in a way, and that really sparked within me this thought that this is interesting because it's a threshold both diegetically for the characters, because for pretty much the entire class, this is their step into the hero world. This is them showing themselves to the pros and showing off what they can do. But at the same time, it's a threshold for the story, where the same way these students are showing off to the pros, this is Hori basically trying to show off his world building and his grander narrative ambition to us. And trying to be more like, okay, you went through the intro, you clearly are still here because you probably tolerate Deku at the very least. Now look at this shit. And then he pulls out Endeavor, and he pulls out Todoroki. And, he makes Uraraka and her family like a victim of hero capitalism. It's like, that's some cool shit. Like, it's very interesting how many of the more interesting concepts of My Hero are only introduced in the arc where the characters are introduced to the real world. It feels fitting now that I think about it.
Yeah,
but and you were gonna say?
And I was gonna say, and I think that this arc ultimately is the point of no return for the fan base, where it split everybody, because if your favorite side character design didn't do anything, then, or you have a few others that you would have liked to see, if you notice, the only complaints you ever get from this arc are, well, why did we skip over Kaminari's fight and make it so short? Why didn't we go through every fight, like the Chunin exams or the Dark Tournament? Why didn't we see all the fights? But then, obviously, the arc doesn't have as excellent pacing if you do that, because those characters aren't relevant to the fact that this arc is about Todoroki and Deku. And so you have the two sides of the fan base, who you have the side who basically is like, okay, if I want hero drama, personal drama, and school drama, Todoroki exists. Like he's just there. He's a pillar for all of that. And so I think there's a reason that if you, for example, if you like Momo and you were just like, oh dang, I wanted to see her do stuff, then when you get to the hero tests, you're like, wow, we finally get to see her character grow. I've wanted that because I wanted this specific side character. But from the narrative's perspective, we've already passed the threshold of you either have Todoroki, who is going through horrible family drama that ties into awesome superpowers and his school life with his friends, who is tied to the main character, or we have Momo, who has insecurity issues. So you either already need to like Momo or like the idea of just exploring a side character, because otherwise the side character threshold has already been filled. That's going lower for most people, and I think that's it's like a big strength to the arc, because it means it comes out with a bang. But it's also the reason I feel like, if you think about it, once you get to Stain and we've finally introduced a cool villain, the hero tests, like, people just tolerate that arc, like the final exams or whatever, and then they go, well, it's just 10 chapters or a few episodes, the Bakugo fight is cool, but then we go into the good stuff, which is the villain's attack, Kamino, And then everyone goes, oh, but then it's the provisional license and we're back at school. Who even cares? And there's like, but don't worry. Then we go to Overhaul where we're doing hero stuff again. And we have this dark trauma girl and this cool badass villain who's way better than Shigaraki. Oh my gosh. And then, oh my gosh, now we're doing a concert. Why are we back here? We're past this. And you see that a lot with the fan base. And I think it's Sports Festival's fault. He's guilty.
Sports Festival poisoned our minds.
Yeah, and so if you're not like me, who you're just like, dude, I want to see every side character, that would be awesome, then you're just sitting there every arc being like, when does Todoroki do anything, or when does the heroes do anything? Because that's what the narrative kind of primes you to care about. And then you go to Stain, and it primes you to care about the villains. So we're past, oh, my insecurities at school, or Mineta wants to touch boobs, but for real, for a purpose. Like for most people, we're past that. And so it's just kind of interesting looking back on this arc and kind of having like, I'm not in the honeymoon phase of my hero anymore, where I can kind of look back and see like, this arc kind of screwed over the series despite how good it is, because it's so good.
Yeah, I think that's actually a very good point. And I will say, however, because you mentioned that you can't really show all the fights because that would ruin the great pacing this arc has. I want to add to that, however, that people who say that, oh, they should have done like Chunin exams where every fight is like a big deal. I rewatched Chunin exams very recently, and I can tell you I vastly prefer MHA's approach, because oh my god, I sat through a full episode of Dosu versus Choji, and I did not care. Like what a... and that's kind of the thing where I think joint training also messed up a little, where it fell into this situation where it committed to all of its fights and couldn't back down from that anymore. And I mean, we talked about that already. If you want to hear our opinions on joint training, there's a full video about that on this very channel.
And it's a good arc despite it, surprisingly. Don't let the mob fool you, so check it out.
There are no bad arcs in My Hero except summer exams. And that's only in the manga.
Thought you were just going to be like, except the ones that are.
Except the arcs that I don't like.
Yeah. But yeah, did you have any more thoughts on that point, I guess?
Well, moving on from the point of like the story expanding, I think one area in which it also expands greatly and ends up being much more substantive than the first section is in how it handles some of the main characters. Specifically, I want to highlight, well, first of all, Uraraka, who you mentioned kind of steps up, and her stepping up is just incredible. Like, rereading this, I forgot how important she is in this arc, even though she doesn't do all that much comparatively. But just her presence in the arc, kind of observing everyone else and comparing herself to the people, and then, having the confidence to go out and fight Bakugo, and that conversation with her parents as well, like, that's so good. It is so well rooted into the lore of the series, into our investment into the cast, and just into, good emotional character writing. Like, her motive of wanting to help her parents is very mundane, but it's also really cool and noble. And to have her struggle for that ends up humanizing her a lot. And it was kind of shocking to me to go back here and see how good she was. And also very depressing, considering that this is probably my favorite aspect of her character, and it kind of never comes up again, which is a big shame.
And I feel like, so I've seen this on Twitter a few times, where they say that scene with her dad where he says basically like, hey, no need to rush, just like do what you're gonna do because you're gonna be a great hero. That was supposed to be like, at least to these people, they say like, no, that's the end of that part of her arc. That's why it then shifts to, I need to get strong at fighting. Then we do the romance arc. Then we do the need to save heroes who are the heroes who save heroes. And I'm just like, I didn't really feel that. I just felt like it was a roadblock to that, like she lost, but she was going to keep trucking towards it, and it would still be a focal point of her character. I didn't feel like she had got to the point where she's like, yeah, I don't got to worry about that anymore. And also what I would say about Uraraka is that what works about her too is that she works as this really great contrast moment where it's like, I'm Deku, and I want to do it because I'm a goody two-shoes boy, and same with All Might. And then you have Uraraka, who comes in, she's this really sweet girl too, and so you're like, oh, what's her moment? It's like, money. And so like, if you're like a cynical viewer, you're like, heck yeah, financial stability, and like, and then if you already like her, you're like, oh, that's nice when you find out why she's doing it. And so I feel like she also adds to the world building, right? Because we haven't had a hero yet who is going for anything other than really altruism or power. So to kind of have like this middle ground of like a realistic thing, but it's not entirely heroic, but it's not necessarily selfish. It's I really like that, and it kind of elevates her immediately. So
yeah, like I think I feel like I've said this a couple of times throughout my stint here on YouTube, but I think one of my favorite things about early MHA is how it handles the notion of heroism in its world, and Uraraka is just one piece of it, where we kind of get to see that the hero in this world is not the same kind of hero that we imagine in, comic books or in, if we go far back, in the epic tales of mythology. Like, it's just a job. And I really liked how this arc kind of starts negotiating that discussion. In a way, it does that as well with Endeavor, where it's a job. It can be done by anyone, even by really shitty people. You being a hero doesn't mean you're a good person. It doesn't mean that you do it for reasons that are completely selfless. And I think that Uraraka's narrative really, really works here. And again, I think, one thing I also want to say is me rereading this arc had me like actually terrified for Uraraka when she was paired up with Bakugo. Like, that reaction there where he's just like, Uraraka, who's that? And she's like crapping her pants. It was like, oh shit. It's
a good thing it's a good thing I'm literally in a different pair of clothes so I can change.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. And I also really appreciate that also just from like a shonen convention perspective, because you get it pretty rarely that the heroine in shonen gets to fight someone as important as the main rival. Yeah. Because, I mean, usually what happens to female heroines is they're given their own rival, one way or another, that is usually much less important than anyone else in the story. So for her to fight Bakugo and to earn his respect to the point where he remembers her name, that's really cool. I mean, it did spawn the worst ship of all, which, is a sacrifice we just have to take, but
Sports Festival gives and it takes.
Yeah, giveth and taketh. It giveth peak entertainment, but it taketh my sanity when I see someone say that Bakugo beating Uraraka for 10 minutes is somehow a profession of love. Like, love that. Love that.
Exactly, it's perfect. You can look in the panels and see that the rocks that he specifically blew up made a heart in the sky that said "I love you, Uraraka." I don't know why she dropped it on him. What a big dump. Oh boy. But yeah, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the other thing I really like is that Bakugo actually has to try. Like, Uraraka's loss is not just Bakugo sweeping her. He genuinely feels that it was a close one. I mean, he says as much as well. So yeah, that's really cool. But you had something to say.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Bakugo also works as a good pillar for this arc because he's just the, like, you already know he's really good. He has explosions for hands, and so he kind of works as this, like, heal for the whole thing, where you're just like, yeah, Monoma, get him, or yeah, Uraraka, kick his butt, he sucks, oh my gosh, and then he still ends up winning and he's unsatisfied. Or if you do like Bakugo, then you're just like, yeah, do it, Bakugo, be the man, you're the coolest guy here, you say you're gonna win and you just do it. And so Bakugo works as this, like, I don't know, like I was watching this video that was like a review of this story where there's like the philosophical antagonist, or like the like personal antagonist. In this case, that's like Todoroki. And then there's like but this is still a video game, or this is still a show, we need to be entertaining antagonist. And that's Bakugo. Bakugo is the straightforward, like, we want to beat this guy with explodey hands, or we want to see him do cool stuff. And he kind of acts as like this through line of like, while everybody else is doing their personal cry over my mommy who spilled oil on my face, and oh, my dad's Superman, but I'm not cool like him, we have Bakugo who's like, die, just like, get out of my way, I'm gonna destroy you and win. And so he kind of brings like that that just force of nature factor, and it's so satisfying. Even if you like, for like me, you like Monoma or something, it's so satisfying to see him just get mad and fight Monoma, or get mad and take down, all these different people. And then the author, Horikoshi, still sprinkles in little character moments like remembering people's name. You kind of get the beginning of his dynamic with Kirishima, which surprisingly, I remembered the anime seeming to add a lot, and thinking like, oh, the manga kind of didn't make it as clear. But I actually do like the kind of subtle transition of how Kirishima becomes his friend, because obviously you have the USJ where they're kind of stuck together, but then you have all these little moments where Kirishima's just like, man, the way he said it sucked, but it was so manly. And you have the fact that he didn't intentionally choose to be with Bakugo. He was originally going to go to Todoroki, and he's like, well, his spots are taken, so I guess I'll team up with you. And then he has to kind of like get him on his side, and he talks back to him. Like, there's a part where he's like, I guess I take down Bakugo next round, and he's like, I'll kill you. He's like, yeah, I'd like to see you try. And I'm like, this is why Kirishima works so well for him, because he's one of the few characters who's just like, whatever, Bakugo, like, who even cares? High five, bro. Die. It's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, actually, Bakugo in general also gets to shine a lot in this arc, just from a character perspective. Like, one of my favorite gags in this arc while I was reading it is the page where they're getting ready for the cavalry battle, and people are piling on Bakugo, asking to be on his team, and it just starts zooming in on him with every panel, and he looks increasingly distressed because he doesn't know how to deal with people. And then he's just like, I don't know what your quirks are. Who are you people?
And I like that the only way he kind of snaps out of it is that Kirishima goes, you want to take down Deku, right? And he's like, my character.
Yeah. Also, yeah, Kirishima and Bakugo, I feel like, are one of those connections that just naturally work so well. Like, actually, Kirishima's explanation of why he should be on Bakugo's team is almost meta in a way, because he says, your journey will be full of explosions, and you need someone who can take them while helping you on the way. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly what Kirishima does the entire time, whether it be his quirk explosions or his like verbal explosions. Kirishima just takes them and is like, oh, okay, sure. Like, as you said, they just bounce off so well. It's great.
Yeah.
And I also like how Bakugo is used to push this notion of true desire and true ambition within the arc, which of course is, kind of its main topic. What does it mean to truly want to succeed? And I like how Bakugo is essentially used as the ultimate vehicle for it, because to him, giving his best is just his nature. He doesn't know how to do it any other way. And it also kind of informs his development away from like the middle school bully into someone who takes shit seriously. And even with Uraraka, someone who at the start of their fight, he doesn't know her name, but he still takes her serious and he still goes all out, which I thought is such an interesting way of characterizing him into a softer person. It's like he is more mature and more reasonable because he's being more violent. It's like, okay, I'm jiggy with this.
Yeah, it's like, it's kind of what just works so well about Bakugo in general. And it's like, because we talked about with originally with last time, where we're like, Bakugo kind of like his backstory and stuff, it doesn't feel like it's given enough time to breathe, and then it just kind of feels like, this is my hashtag shonen backstory. Like, it doesn't have kind of as much weight, and so you kind of understand why people were just so dismissive of him. But I really think that the sports festival gives you those little moments to breathe and kind of see Bakugo for who he is. And what works so much about it is that he still, as every time he develops, he still keeps his personality and his cool factor, but you get moments like he's listening in on Todoroki and Deku's conversation, and he just kind of stands there, and you just kind of have to picture, what is he feeling on his face, Or like, whenever he gets knocked out and he's on the ground, and he looks like he's like about to cry, like while he's like asleep, because he wasn't able to basically validate himself by fighting Todoroki. And then, like, little things, like the names and stuff like that. And all that stuff is sprinkled throughout at a really good pace. Even small stuff like him analyzing the situation calmly. Like, being like, okay, so Todoroki probably needs to do this because his ice won't go forever, and oh, that's kind of like my quirk. Like, you see all these little calm moments with him that I think really do good for him. Like, if you didn't like Bakugo, there's moments where you can kind of finally start to be like, oh, okay, I feel it. And also, it helps that Horikoshi geniusly gave him a even snobbier rival in Monoma, who this is the moment where you're either like me and you love him because he's like that, and you're just like, yeah, tell Bakugo that he sucks and eat dirt, and then, or you're on Bakugo's side and you're like, you know what, that guy's even worse, take him out.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Every show has, or every story always has the one character who's just a shithead for the sake of being a shithead. Yeah. And for the first season and a half of MHA, you think Bakugo is supposed to be that guy. And then you meet Monoma, and you're like, oh no, wait. Here we go. Yeah. And I love Monoma so much.
Oh, yeah.
He's so goofy, and it could backfire so easily, but because Hori does the wise decision of making everyone in universe understand how goofy he is, it gets so funny. Like, even later in the story, every time he gets knocked out by Kendo, I'm in tears. Because it's just so good.
Well, and it's that feeling that I always love in stories, which is familiarity. Because when she does it, it's like, yeah, we do this all the time. You know, don't mind him, don't mind my stupid kid brother. Like, basically, like that kind of energy. You know. Yeah. And it builds out the world. It builds out the world and the relationship between Class B.
Yeah, and I also, one thing I like about Monoma is that as much shit he throws at everyone, you can kind of tell it's not actually that malicious, all things considered. Like, it's kind of nasty in, like, the bully sense. But then you get to, you know, how he talks and, you know, exaggerates himself all the time. And compare that to how he talks to his classmates, and you realize he's just kind of a dick to people he thinks are privileged, but that's it. He's not, like, a bad person. Like, when like, one of my favorite moments, and I'm so glad that this wasn't an anime edition because I didn't remember, but it is in the manga, is before the cavalry battle starts, you just get this tiny panel of Monoma telling Tetsudesu's team, hey, no hard feelings. We're all in this together. And it's like, yeah, no hard feelings. Let's go.
Yeah, it's great. It's what makes Monoma so good is when he breaks character. Like, that's that's what really fleshes him out. And also just the fact that some of his sick burns are kind of good. Like, when he's just like, yeah, why would we go after, you know, it's better than going after the first place prize, like a horse with a carrot tied in front of his face. Oh, by the way, you were that guy who got captured by the sludge monster, right? That's what you're famous for. You gotta tell me about it sometime. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, you actually left out the best line where he's like, it can't be easy being kidnapped on an annual basis. I'm like, oh my god.
And it's kind of crazy going to the joint training arc and seeing, like, certain characters you start to recognize, like Juzo using his quirk, or like certain characters kind of hanging around each other, and it's still consistent. Like like anytime any of the characters like talk or like interact or whatever, it feels consistent with how they're portrayed in that arc, which is cool. Like, it was kind of fun being like, holy crap, I know every character in the sports festival now, and I like most of them.
Yeah, no, it's really nice, and it's cool to see how their characterization is mostly consistent. Like, obviously, you have Mushroom Girl, who appears for a couple of panels, but looks completely different. Like, Hori just did a complete 180 on her design. Also, I noted this in my notes while I was reading it. Why do they call Shiozaki an assassin? Like,
yeah, and that's like President Mike who does that, right?
Yeah, and then she's like, wait, why am I an assassin? And President Mike just apologizes but doesn't explain. And I always thought that was like, because I watched this in dub, so I thought this was a dub thing. But no, it's in the manga as well, and it's so weird to me. Like, why is she an assassin? Weird.
Yeah, because it's like, literally any character could have, like, pinpoint, like, you could say that, well, you can't say Bakugo's an assassin, he's too loud, but like I don't know, yeah, it's a weird thing, but I don't know, but it was nice to see, like, her, or see, like, Tetsu, or see, like, Kendo be like, hey guys, like, I watched the round, I was in it, Tetsu and Shiozaki, they did the best, they should go ahead, even though we had more points than them, they were trying the hardest. And then whenever they switch out with the Twin Impact guy and Ojiro, it's like, yeah, that's what Kendo would do. And it's really cool to kind of, like, see that.
Yeah, like in general, I think the students in My Hero, especially in early My Hero, work at their best when you can feel that, they're not people who are like incredibly close to each other. They're not blood brothers or whatever, but they are tolerant of each other. Like they like spending time with each other, and they have a sense of solidarity.
And they know each other. Like
Yeah.
there's yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so to me, this arc is very strong in that as well, where you just kind of get to see they're kids and they have opinions and feelings regarding other kids in their school and class. And I just feel like that is something that a lot of shonen manga and anime end up kind of skipping, where you get these characters, and my benchmark for that is always Naruto, because I'm sorry, that's just what I grew up with. But you always have these characters where you feel like, I don't think this character A knows that character B exists. Like, I don't think Shoji is aware that Tenten is a human being.
Right.
And it's kind of, in a way, like, it's a tiny thing, but seeing it in MHA, where you can really have this impression that every character has an opinion on every other character, even if we don't get to hear it, just makes such a difference in making this feel like a unit, making this feel like, yeah, these characters do go to school every day, and they do meet each other every day, even if we don't get to see every single day of their lives. And I think that that's a pretty potent thing to start then leveraging when we get to things like the current manga arc, where the class has somewhat, been broken, fallen apart. And I think that that's really cool. So yeah, I definitely agree that I like this sort of, you mentioned this feeling of familiarity and solidarity of the class. So yeah, definitely a big plus for me.
Yes.
Anything else that we want to say on Class B? Or
so yeah, I guess real quick, since Class B takes place in the race and the cavalry battle, would we want to just kind of hit those real quick if we have any thoughts on them?
Sure.
Because then I feel like we'll kind of mostly be stuck on the 1v1s and Endeavor and All Might, which is kind of the second half. So it kind of feels right to kind of wrap up anything we have about the first half, if we have any thoughts.
Okay. The very first thing I want to say about this, because it is in my notes again, in the cavalry battle, the rule that you're not allowed to attack the opposing teams in ways that would make them fall over is complete bullshit and gets ignored immediately. Like, I read this and I was like, wait a minute. No way is that actually in the manga, but it is. And it's like, what does that mean? Because, like, these people keep attacking each other in incredible ways. Like, Bakugo fires off explosions, Juzo muds people. Like, how do you define something as not attacking their standing?
Yeah.
Like, it's so weird.
So I'm so glad you brought this up, because this will allow me to just talk about my one point about the race and the cavalry battle together. So perfect. So with the just the race and the cavalry battle, it is pretty much impossible to basically connect with it on a logic perspective. We are still so to go to the race, basically. Why is it that they have bottomless pits that they never explain, like, is there someone at the bottom who will help the kids if they fall? There's literally ropes going around. They have bombs placed around, and they say, well, don't worry, they don't pack much a punch. Dude, if that explodes on your leg, I don't care if it doesn't break it off. It's gonna break it, or I'm gonna fall on my head. You have the fact that Todoroki is allowed to drop a robot on two kids, and they brush it off by saying, well, at least it was the strong ones. There was no teacher out there to, like, dig them out. No one was worried. There's robots that are trying to kill them and do all this stuff. You can, and then Deku's plan of, like, I'm going to, like, dig out, like, 10 bombs he finds, put them all in a pile, then jump on it. Let's not forget the fact that he somehow crawled his way across, like, there's, like, 7 bottomless pit sections that he has to slowly climb across the rope with a giant pack of metal on his back, run across the next one, do that, and for some reason Todoroki and Bakugo haven't made it to the end. Then he digs up all the bombs, jumps on it, and then is able to do a perfect flip and slap the ground and blast himself forward. None of it makes any sense. If you try to come at the sports festival, or not the sports festival, the cavalry battle, or the race, and you're trying to come at it from like a, whoa, I'm proud of Deku because he gave it his all and it worked out. You see how it worked? You will not be satisfied. Characters do not use their quirks in good ways, and there is a ridiculous amount of like One Piece logic where like people can be in like life or death situations, but because it's not that serious, they're fine. But the problem with MHA is that MHA gets to the point where things are taken like very seriously in terms of like what they can do. Like Deku constantly says like, I can't use 100%, I might kill someone. Dude, you used 100% blast at your feet and you were strong enough to not be blown away or break the concrete. Last time you did that, you broke through Todoroki's ice. It makes no sense. Or you have Bakugo, who in the arc before this, he uses an explosion and singes Deku's arm, like it's like burned and stuff, and he shoots Uraraka point blank with like 10 explosions and she's fine.
Yeah, like you really end up at this point where you just have to accept that for this arc specifically, all these characters can like just dial their powers. Like they have knobs in their brain that is just like, okay, don't break legs, don't perforate skin, but do rattle head, do damage, but do not do any serious damage. Like, I definitely get what you mean. It's very much, it's an event, right?
Yeah.
And what matters is the event, not the logic.
And that's where I think the manga is weaker, because I think the manga's presentation doesn't allow the moments that the anime elevates to be big moments. Like, for example, Todoroki doing that giant over-the-top, like, Yutaka Nakamura blast against the robot at the start of the race. That's so ridiculous, and the ridiculousness keeps that pace the whole time. So when Deku counters with a ridiculous move, everyone's on that level of, like, we're all doing just over-the-top stupid things. Or, like, for example, Mei Hatsume, they, like, just go above and beyond with her, like, going across the pits by, like, the camera's, like, whipping around and she's flying across the pillars and doing all this stuff. So everyone is throwing out these ridiculous moves, and so when Deku does his play, it doesn't feel like it's cheapening anything, because everyone's being over the top and crazy. Whereas I feel like the manga is actually a bit too subdued, and it actually doesn't go all in enough, and it doesn't have the music, it doesn't have the voice acting, it doesn't have the pacing, I would say. Like, for example, one of the best moments of the anime is when Deku slams the thing and he blasts forward, and then he's running, and you actually get to follow him running for a bit, and then you see the ice of Todoroki coming towards him, and you see Bakugo's explosion. He's in the tunnel. Who's gonna make it? Who's gonna make it? It's Izuku Midoriya! Whereas in the manga, it's so fast, and it doesn't feel earned. You know, and the spectacle wasn't able to carry it for me.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel you on that one. I think the race and the cavalry battle both suffer a bit from the fact that they are hyper focused on what they want to achieve, and everything else is just kind of there. Like the race is about Deku making his first big splash. Deku being creative with his use of his environment without his power. That's what it is about. Everything else, don't worry about it, brother. Like, why are you asking questions about the pit? We don't ask about the pit here, right? Like,
don't ask about the pit. It's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, like, what if a student dies? They don't die. Don't worry about it. Hey, come on. Look at Deku. He's so cool. You know,
the only one who got crushed was just like, it's a meme, bro. Like, they just have the same quirk. Ain't that funny? Don't pay attention to the fact a robot fell on some children.
Yeah, like, you know. Also, though, I will mention on the robots, one of the funniest running gags in MHA, and probably one of the most missed ones, because it's so small. It's blink it and you'll miss it. And I only ever found out because I was told by Caleb Cook. The robots in MHA all have sentience, and they all have a vendetta against humans.
Yeah.
It's really funny. Whenever they talk, it's always like, we will take over humanity, destroy them. And it's like, why is this not addressed? Like, this seems like a big deal, but I really like how it's like just a side gag, basically. It keeps coming up.
I can't wait till MHA is over, and then you have one of those super serious, like, top 5 unexplained mysteries in My Hero. Number 1, the robot apocalypse. Why is it never addressed that the robots are actively trying to take over the world?
But again, that's one of those things where like it's not important to the main message
Yeah.
of the story, so don't worry about it.
Don't
Like,
worry
come on.
about it. Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah, and so that's why I think the cavalry battle holds up better than the race, but I was kind of falling asleep reading the race, whereas I know every time I watch it in the anime, and I watched it recently, you're just pumped up, bro. You're just like, oh my gosh, let's go. Like when Deku swings at the robot and it like slows most for a sec, and then he cuts its arm in half, and then it goes, and you just feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, one thing regarding the cavalry battle, which I noted down, is there's a translation. I don't know if it's inconsistency or if it's in the original text, but so in the anime, and at least in the dub, Tokoyami's power is explained as working just with any light. Like, right? That,
Yeah.
And that's, I believe, the way it is intended. But in the English manga, he says sunlight in his explanation. And then when Tokoyami is being pushed back by Kaminari, he's like, "Oh no, Kaminari's sunlight attacks." And I'm like, "No, that's not how his quirk works."
Yeah.
So I wonder if that was a continuity error, if because at the time, obviously, this was translated when MHA was very new, and stuff was not explained as much. They didn't know how many resources to give the translation. Like, this is not like a dig at the translation. It's just while I was reading it, it really like made me stop and consider, like, wait a minute, did I misunderstand Kaminari's ability? Does he actually produce sunlight? Like, no, of course not. But it's funny. But yeah, the cavalry battle I think holds up also because I think you end up just with more creativity on the quirk side as opposed to the race. When the race, everyone's just kind of trying to get forward, whereas in the cavalry battle, you have shit like Mineta's team up with Asui and Shoji. Yeah. And it's just like this weird tank formation. And it's super cool. Or like, the way Bakugo ends up beating Monoma is also super nice. Although, honestly, that one is way better in the anime than it is in the manga. Again, because in the manga, I don't know. I think early Hori had a big problem with making impact. Like with giving you those big impact moments. A lot of them just kind of feel like they pass you by. And I think he kind of catches himself at the end of this arc, obviously with the big event. But some of this stuff in the cavalry battle in the race does not feel as impactful as I feel it should. But again, this is one of the arcs that I watched first before I read it. So I am very biased in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I would be very interested if you are a manga reader first. Please share your experience, because I would like to know if like you're like, no, dude, I felt all the moments you were saying you didn't feel. Just because that would be interesting, Like that's always the most interesting to find is anyone who didn't watch the anime. How do they feel about All Might versus Nomu? Because to me it's like the most lamest thing ever. But then I find people who read the manga first are like, that was awesome. So yeah. But I just thought that would be interesting to kind of find out. And then, as far as like any other little things about the race or the cavalry battle, the final thing that I would say is that it has one of the best moments of like, oh, that side character gets to do something, let's go, with Tokoyami, because he's one of the characters who sticks out the most in terms of, like, again, if you're starting the series and you're like, who's important? And you're like, who's the Birdman? And so you just have this excellent build-up. Nowhere in the arc have they made Tokoyami, like, a big deal in this whole thing. And Ida has made the really cool surprise decision, because you would expect, you'd be like, okay, so he's going to work with Deku, it'll be the perfect team, it's the friends we've built up, and then Hori, he keeps throwing in these curveballs of like, hey, that weirdo with the, Mei Hatsume, she's going to join the team, but who's left? Who could possibly be on the team? And I remember watching it in the anime and also reading it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, here it comes, and it builds up to it so perfectly, where it's like 10, and then you have Monoma talking to Tetsu 9, and other characters talking, and then you open it, and it's this giant spread, and you just see Tokoyami there, and you're like, it's the Birdman!
Yeah, no, it's so gay. It's so great. Like, when I first watched this, I remember that scene very vividly when Deku was like, I found him. And it's like, who could it be? Who could it be? And I remember when the camera pans and you get to see Tokoyami, I was like, what? Why? Why the Birdman of everyone? I mean, I'm not upset, but like,
Yeah,
why?
but why? And then you realize that, oh, they're facing off against a 5-member team now. And it all makes sense, and it's so cool.
Yeah, I know, it's awesome. Like, I like that's actually one of the cooler upsets I think also in the cavalry battle is that Ida does not join them because it immediately like sets him up as well as a more
Yep.
like a more dimensional character where he's like, no, you know what? I'm not just your friend. I'm also someone who has goals, and if that means that I have to oppose you, well, buckle up, buddy. Hope you can survive a couple of recipro bursts.
Yeah.
Also, man, the reveal was recipro.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I love afterwards where Uraraka's like jogging in place and she's just like, you never said you had a super cool move. She's like, I did not mean to to trick you. It was simply just using it for the event. And it's just real. It really just ties into that idea of like Deku's our main character, and you either really like him or you really don't. So seeing all these characters like step up and be like, yeah, number 1 spot, I'm taking you down, buddy boy. It's like, yes, let's go, competition. And so yeah, it's really cool that that just all the side characters are really stepping up in order to take on Midoriya. And that just really gives the arc this sense of competition. And lots of people love sports. Lots of people love to kind of make bets. It's always fun when you watch the anime and they start doing like brackets or something, you know? Like, it's just really fun. The arc is built for that competitive spirit. And it therefore makes you want to root for underdogs like Ida or Uraraka and stuff like that. So it's really cool.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Why don't we move on from like the early parts of this and like just talking about characters at random to talking about something I want to talk about, which is Deku. Because Deku in this arc kind of makes a little transformation. Whereas like pre-sports festival and in season 1, he is consistently like this meek little kid who steps up in situations of stress and strife, but is mostly easily intimidated by pretty much everything around him. And there are very few moments where he like actually stands up for himself. One being, you know, when he tells Bakugo he is going to UA, no matter how he feels about it. And at best, you know, he has like moments where he's a bit like cheeky, like when he shows Aizawa that he can shoot the ball without breaking his entire arm. This arc is the first time we get to see what I like to call rawness and swag Deku.
Yes, I was thinking that too. Go ahead.
Like, he just starts being so much more competitive. And it starts with, it's interesting because actually Bakugo kickstarts it. Because Deku is like, I don't know if I want to actually try that hard at the festival. Like, I already have All Might supporting me. And then he sees Bakugo being like a complete dick to Class B and Shinso, and he's like, you know, I'm always going to do my best because I want to be the best of the best. And Deku's like, wait a minute, I want to be the best of the best.
Yeah.
And after that point, you know, when someone talks shit to him, he talks back. And I really like that. Like, I think this is where one of my favorite aspects of Deku really develops, which is the fact that he is sweet and emotional and perceptive, but he's not really a pushover. Like, when things matter, he will absolutely talk smack. And my favorite example of that is when a walking volcano the size of a refrigerator walks up to him and tells him, oh, you better go beat my son. And Deku's like, actually, fuck yourself. And whenever I say this, people are like, oh, that's not impressive. Like, Endeavor couldn't hurt him. And it's like, have you seen Endeavor?
Yeah.
Like, would you walk up to this man and just tell him to shove it? Could you do that in real life? I would like to see that. Like, no,
and then cool. basically say like, you're a bad dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's super cool. And like, even beyond just this obvious one, like the way he treats Todoroki before their fight. Todoroki consistently comes up to him and is like, hey, I'm gonna beat you. Like, I need to do this. And Deku's like, I understand, but no. And it's like, yes, you go. Like, it's cool because it's this mix where he is emotionally cognizant of other people. He isn't like Bakugo, who just talks about winning all the time. He is understanding of the fact that people have circumstances that make them want to win, and that he might not have the strongest claim to victory. But he also doesn't invalidate his own ambition. He's like, no, you know what? I have my reasons, and they might not be as epic as yours, but that doesn't make them any less valid, and I am going to win. And on my reread, that was the thing that really sold this arc, that kind of resold it to me in a way.
Yeah.
Just his consistent feistiness. Because also, like, I would not have expected, if I just watched season 1 going into season 2, I would not have expected Deku to come up with the strategy of, I'm in midair, I have this big metal thing, what am I gonna do? Oh, I'm gonna stand on the shoulders of my rivals and smash the minefield
and blow them up.
Get blown to bits. Yeah, like, that is so cool. And for a little anecdote, I don't know if you were very active in the fandom at the time, but when this part came out, apparently, because obviously I also just found that out retrospectively because I wasn't into the manga when this was first released. But apparently this is when Deku was given a nickname which remained with him for pretty much until Pro Hero, which was the absolute Mad Lad.
Yeah, Madman Midoriya.
Madman Midoriya, exactly.
Yeah.
And this arc is maybe the best example of that.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, the obvious one is, I don't have any fingers left. My cheek!
Yeah, and I'm gonna break my broken fingers. I think the moment that Deku is at his most spiteful, and I guess we can get into it now since it's kind of the peak of his character in this arc, which is the Todoroki fight. What's so good about the Todoroki fight is that it's bobbing and weaving through so many emotions of Deku that it's like basically impossible to track when he switches to which one, because he has the side of him that wants to win, he has the side of him that wants to help Todoroki, and he has the side of him that says, I'm going to spite you. And the biggest moment for that is when Todoroki says, like, hey man, thanks for dragging this out, look at Endeavor, he's so upset, I appreciate it, but let's end this now. And you just see it on his face, like, you what? I am not done yet. And it just breaks his hand. He just breaks his fingers again. And it's this great moment where, and the manga screws this up, the Viz translation. I've checked the dub, I've checked the sub, I've checked the Japanese version.
Yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
But what he's supposed to say is, look at me, Todoroki, you haven't managed to put a single scratch on me yet, which is I think that's his coolest line ever.
Yeah, especially because he says it with, like, a hand that is in pieces.
Yeah, like that's Deku in a nutshell, which is that he has this overpowered quirk, and yet he has to use it on himself to beat you. And meanwhile, you're just basically blocking and parrying. It's like, you haven't done this to me. I did this to me. Come at me, bro. Let's see if you can actually put a scratch. And then as soon as Todoroki tries, he drops him and punches him in the stomach, and it's great.
Yeah, like, another thing I like about how Deku's portrayed in this arc is consistently how fucking terrified Todoroki is whenever he's at the wrong end of his fist. Like, in the Cavalry battle, where, like, just the pressure of Deku activating One for All, he's like, oh fuck, oh shit.
Yeah. It always says shudder.
Yeah. And I like that because that's actually something that's consistent between Deku, All Might, All for One, and Shigaraki. They all have this pressure. And I really like the way it's used here, where, like, every single time in his main fight with Todoroki, where Deku gears up for a punch, you get a tiny panel of just Todoroki losing it. Of him just like, being, oh no.
This is gonna hurt.
Yeah. No, like, in the anime, they made it even more. Like, when Deku, for the first time, hits Todoroki with his arm, not with the wind press, but with his full arm. Because at that point, Todoroki doesn't know if Deku can actually control the power. And Deku doesn't know either. So in Todoroki's mind, you can literally see in his eyes, like, oh no, I am dying if this hits me.
He's like, like that. Like he has like this, oh no, this is gonna hurt.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like, I consistently love this. And it really just sells how terrifying Deku is, because he has this combination of tenacity, strategic thinking, and a power that can, like, break you in half and can break him in half.
And the thing that always, I'm sorry, I'll let you finish.
No, I was just gonna say the power that can break you in half, but also him in half. But he doesn't care.
Yeah. Well, and that's also, it's always the thing that inspires people, which is that, like, Horikoshi does not hold back with the brutality of the pain Deku's in. Like, in stories, obviously, it's kind of easy to be distant from the character because you're not experiencing their pain and they're not real. And also, they're shonen characters, so you have even less reason to, like, take any damage they take seriously, kind of. But with Deku, like he's always sweating, his, like, lips are quivering, he can barely move his hand, and it's, like, there's, like, little cuts in it that, like, move into each other, and, like, he has, like, blood oozing out of his pinky, like, one of his fingers in one shot. Like, you genuinely feel the pain that he has, and you're just, like, it basically takes the selfless side of it to a level that always gets to me, because, like, I can see that he's in pain, and that he's doing this for somebody else, you know? And those are always the moments that inspire people like Todoroki, where he's like, why are you going this far? And he's like, because I have, I want to live up to other people's expectations, but there's also the side of it that is doing it so you will live up to who you can be. And it's one of the better moments where he's like, if you, and I think I like it better than the dub or the sub version of this line, where he's like, if you're not willing to use your full power, then then I don't think you're serious about truly denying him everything. And which is basically just a cooler way of it's your quirk, it's not his. Or it's like, if you really want to get at your father, then why not just be you and be you to the fullest you can be despite him. And which is it's one of those few moments where you can kind of see the shift of I want to save you, or I want to win, to I want to save you. And Deku is doing so much damage to his body that Todoroki can't help but, like, emotionally, like, connect with that and be like, he's doing this for me. Why? Is he crazy?
Yeah, because also another thing that I think is another thing that I think is kind of important here is that in the manga and in the English translation, I think they actually really amplify some of Deku's lines in that regard. For example, the one that I like is the way he approaches Endeavor in the manga as opposed to the dub and the sub. Because in the dub and the sub, he's just like, I am not All Might and Todoroki is not you. Whereas in the English manga, he's like, I am not All Might. And then Endeavor's like, what the fuck do you mean? Of course you're not. And Deku's like, exactly, of course I'm not. And Todoroki's not you. And I think that little thing just makes it more like, it makes it snappier in a way. So yeah,
the of course I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that works a little better like that. But yeah, do we want to move on in that case to the actual fights, or is there like a topic you want to take before that?
Yeah, I guess I want to, well, okay, so we'll go into the fights. This will be perfect, because I can get, like, my one, like, actual, I guess, like, big criticism, because, like, any other criticisms I have for the manga version of this arc are kind of just like, oh, it didn't really nail it as hard as it could, or, oh, I was kind of bored here because the presentation wasn't doing its job, which are kind of just, like, they're important to me in terms of, like, the overall rating I'll give this arc, but they're not really, like, stuff where I'm just like, this is bad, and so I want to go over the one part that I think, this is bad, which is, and it'll perfectly tie into talking about the fight. So, in the Shinso fight, the way Deku gets brainwashed is the worst thing his character has ever done, in terms of, like, just bad characterization for him. Ojiro tells him, do not talk to this man, and Deku is given this weird characterization where Shinso simply being like, oh, that stupid ape, of Ojiro, a character that we do not care about, and Deku, like, barely knows, and he's like, how dare you, I'll freaking you, ah! And then he gets brainwashed, and I'm like, what is going on? You, like, it feels like the most forced way Horikoshi could have written that scene, and even if you want to say, well, like, Deku, he cares about people, blah, 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 it's like, dude, this is Ojiro. And also, he didn't even say much. He just said, like, oh, that stupid idiot gave up his spot. And he's like, oh my god! And I'm like, no, stop. Why? Yeah. And it just makes, it's the one moment in MHA where I feel like Deku, like, writing-wise for his character. Because there's stuff, that we don't like about the way Deku's, like, powers have been handled. But that's not his character, That's just things around him. But this is the one moment in the story where I'm like, your character, like, screwed up there. That's bad. That looks really bad on you.
Yeah, like, the only explanation I've ever been able to rationalize for myself is just the fact that Deku is so used to just muttering and just, talking to himself all the time, that he doesn't really have a filter as to when he should shut the fuck up. So his emotions are kind of always come out. But, that's one thing. But for the object of his ire to be the insult towards someone we and presumably he barely care about, that's very bizarre. And I guess Hori just really wanted the predecessor scene, and he couldn't think of a way. He couldn't think of a way to organically weave that in without having Deku to get brainwashed one way or another. Because the thing is, I think the moment he wrote Ojiro knowing about the brainwash quirk, he kind of wrote himself into a corner. Because once anyone knows about the brainwash quirk, and once anyone is willing to tell Deku about it, there is no logical way Deku is getting caught by it.
Well, I was gonna bring up my one little if hindsight's 2020. Here's how I would have wrote it. So obviously, I'm not gonna hold this against Tori. Stuff happens. Maybe he was writing it quick, he couldn't think of it, whatever. Or he did write himself into a corner. If I could go back and alter it, here's how I would do it, which is that you see oftentimes in the anime community, they get it confused and they think that Shinso, the way his power works is that he has to ask you a question. And so just have Ojiro give bad info. Have it be like he came up to me and he said, "Hey, do you want to join my team?" And then I responded. And so he goes, and then just be like, I think that the way his power works is that he has to ask you a question, because I saw him talking to other people and they did not seem like they were being brainwashed. So Midoriya, just don't respond to him if he asks you a question. And then also and then also be like, "Hey, just don't talk to him in general if at all if you can help it." And then just have Shinso start the battle and say anything to him, and then have Deku have the little mutter thing where he can be like, "Okay, what do I do?" And then bam, he gets brainwashed. And then it
counts as an answer.
Yeah, and then Shinso, his quirk, brainwashing. All you have to do is respond to him. It's not about a question. I think that's the way I would have done it. Obviously, hindsight's 2020, but that's just kind of my way of that's how I would have fixed it. Because his quirk doesn't work that it's a question, because otherwise the way he gets people in joint training doesn't make any sense, where he's just like, "Deku, let's fight," and he just says, "Okay." It's not a question. You just have to respond to him. So
yeah, okay, I can see that. That would have probably worked better. But again,
yeah,
this is very early Hori, right?
Yes, of course. That's why I bring it up as just a fun thing, not it wasn't an obvious Horikoshi. Wow, I could have wrote that in my sleep. I hate when that stuff is done.
Let's release our own fan-made version of the sports festival, and
finally,
let's say that that's the definitive version.
Yeah,
because that's how you respect authors. Definitely.
The Ocean's approved version.
Yes.
But then other than that, I guess we can talk about the Shinso fight. Did you have any thoughts on it?
Well, besides the thing that you mentioned, which is that, wow, it's a bizarre choice to have Deku be this stupid. I like the way we get introduced to the idea of the predecessors, because because what has always remained in my head is when I watched My Hero with a friend of mine, and we got to this scene in the anime, and this was after the sixth quirk reveal had already happened in the manga, and we get to this scene where the predecessors are shown, and she just goes, "Finally," and I'm like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "Oh, it's like a cumulative power, so obviously the predecessors would come into play," and I'm like, "Wait a minute, yeah, you're right." Would be a huge waste to have that never be addressed. So yeah, in hindsight, I really, really like this inclusion. It expands the lore of One for All without actually expanding it in a weird way, because it doesn't overtly tell you anything. It just opens the door to, the people who once held this power actually kind of matter. They're not just faceless nobodies that just exist for the sake of having made this power stronger. And especially now with the hindsight of the true nature of One for All, I think this was a pretty elegant way of introducing it, aside from, of course, making Deku really stupid for a chapter. Aside from that, I like Shinso in general in this arc. I think his inclusion really hammers home the inequalities of hero society, and him specifically berating Deku with stuff that does actually apply to him is a really interesting way of showing Deku's attitude towards it. Where Deku's like, because it could have been easy for Deku to just be like, Shinso, what the fuck are you talking about? I can totally empathize with you. But it's kind of duplicitous, where he's like, I empathize with your situation, I obviously understand it, but yes, I really was lucky. I really was blessed. I wasn't blessed at birth, but I was blessed through circumstance. And, that still puts me into the category of person that you say you hate. And, how he kind of negotiates these aspects between himself. I think that's, again, a really interesting way to characterize Deku in the wake of this lore expansion we're seeing with Hero Society in this arc.
Yeah.
And besides that, the fight is cool. Like, I like the little thing where Shinso punches Deku and Deku just like defiantly looks back at him. That's like maybe one of my favorite shots of Deku. But aside from that, it's really just two guys pushing each other. So, it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I can give my points on it if you have nothing else.
Yeah, no, that's kind of where I'm done with this fight. Like, this is the fight that is cool because we get the predecessors and we get Deku being a badass for a couple of pages, and that's kind of it for me.
Yeah, so I wanted to say about Deku is that I really like the comparison between where his mindset at here is to where his mindset is in the Gentle fight, because in this fight, the way he contextualizes like his dream is that people believed in my dream, so I need to accomplish it because other people got me this far. So it's like if they, it would be like all their work was wasted, basically, right? If I don't accomplish my goal. Because he says, like, I'll do it for them, that's why I'm here, is because of my mom, my, All Might, and my friends. And I like the difference between that and the Gentle arc, because the Gentle arc is when he kind of finally solidifies what he wants to be, because Gentle asks him the same question that Mirio asked him at the start of the Overhaul arc, which is what kind of hero do you want to be, or why did you want to become a hero? And Deku ends up answering the why in that question. But he says, basically he flips it to where it's no longer about my dream. It's that there are people who believe in me, and so my dream is no longer to become a great hero for the sake of being a great hero. My dream is to become a great hero who can make their lives easier. So my dream is basically to flip around and preserve and help them, instead of them helping me means I need to preserve my own dream, if that makes sense.
I think that's really spot on.
Yeah, and that's just a really cool kind of like thing to track that whenever I was going back to this arc, I noticed, and I thought was really cool. As far as Shinso, I think the anime elevated this spot too. You got the music, you have the moment where like it just stops and it's quiet, you see the cherry blossoms, and then you say run, piano version kicks in, and like it really helps kind of like help you sympathize a little more with Shinso, because in the manga I just kind of thought it happened too fast, which is a kind of a common thing I feel like in this arc. But with Shinso, I do want to say that one complaint that I do want to address is that some people say, like, okay, well, Shinso, if you want to be a hero so bad and you didn't get into UA, then why not just go to another hero school? Surely not all of the hero schools have you fighting robots, so you could just go to a lesser school. And it's like, but that's not the point. We're still at the early parts in MHA where the selflessness of wanting to be a hero coincides with the dreams of children, and Shinso doesn't want to just be a hero. He wants to be the best hero he can be, and to do that, you go to the best hero school. And so he was fine with going with general studies in the hopes that he could then get into the hero course. He hasn't given up on that dream. And it's like what he says, where Deku's like, but why do you want to be a hero? And he's like, well, you can't help what your heart longs for, which I think is one of the most powerful lines of like just as far as like the characters why they want to be a hero. And I think that's kind of where you're supposed to look at it. It's not like the side of things where it's like, well, logically you could have just went to a different school. It's like, well, he doesn't want to go to a different school, he wants to go to this school and become the best hero that this school, the greatest hero school, can bring out of him. And so there is that side of it where you can relate to the fact of like, He was good enough to get into general studies. He was good enough for that. But his quirk just didn't mesh well with one test, and now he's stuck here. But I'm going to make it, man. I'm going to get through the sports festival. I'm going to kick someone off their spot, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to be a great hero. And when he loses, and he still sticks with that, and you see all his classmates rooting him on, it really makes it more satisfying when he comes back in joint training and he has that moment where he's like, I've been working, I've been trying, by doing putting on the performance he did, it got the attention of Aizawa, which then allowed him to get the training he needed to get into the course. So I think Shinso is just this really fun little, basically D story. Like, it's not even like the C plot or the B plot or maybe even the D plot. It's like the G plot. but it's just like this nice, cute little story that I'm so happy that Horikoshi decided to bring back and connect not only to just this nice little character, but also to the vestiges, which is just really fun. And I like how smoothly Horikoshi just inserts this in, and then he just doesn't do anything with it for, like, 4 seasons.
Like, it's hilarious how Deku, like, goes to All Might for advice, and All Might's reaction is, ooh, that's spooky.
Yeah, and then Deku, after he gives the explanation, he's like, that's not very convincing, and he's like, don't worry about it, just focus on the sports festival.
Yeah, I really like it. Also, during the Shinso fight, I just remembered I encountered maybe the best visual gag in this arc, which is when Deku's brainwashed and is walking towards, out of bounds. He's also walking towards All Might, who's at the gate. And you can just see All Might there going, what are you doing, Deku? And, like, you know how he's usually bleeding out of his mouth in skeleton form, but instead of bleeding, he's seeping out little nose out of his mouth. No.
That's great.
Yeah, All Might is such a cute dad in this arc as well.
Yeah, like, it's easy to forget about him when he's not just being big punchy man and, like, awe-inspiring, but I just love his little dad karate chop to the neck. That was pretty cool. It was pretty nice. And just him being like, hey, kid, if you're not feeling good, just smile, bro. And then he, like, turns into his Dad Might form. It's just great. I love All Might.
Yeah, he's just great. Also, of course, this arc gives us the reveal that he is quirkless, or that he was quirkless, which... It's hard to appreciate that in hindsight in a way, because to me, I don't know, even when that was revealed, I was never really under the impression that he would have had a quirk besides One for All. Like, I never even thought about it, but I assumed that at the time when this chapter first came out, it must have been like a big deal, because obviously, it pretty much sets in stone all the parallels between the two. So it's interesting to me how I passed that by. I'm always like, oh yeah, of course he's quirkless. While at the time it was probably a big deal.
Yeah, and it's also just always nice when it's one of my favorite aspects of the story where the story consistently says, like, yeah, Deku, like, if we're being honest, there's probably, like, so many people who are better than you. And the story consistently tells him that and then says, but I chose you. And that's literally all that matters, is that I saw something in you. It wasn't that you were better, that you were stronger, that you were smarter. I saw you, and you are who I chose. So that's how it is. And I just think that's really sweet. Like, I know obviously in shonen there's, a lot of people love the idea of hard work, and, hard work needs to always beat talent or needs to beat the lucky and blah, blah, blah. And I think there's just something so sweet about just someone who does have power or who just sees something in someone else and just says, no, I like you. And I choose you just because I choose you. And that's it. No other factors. I don't know. That's just a really special feeling. And it's something that you kind of only really get through parents, where, like, parents might be like, oh, when you were a kid, like, I wanted to strangle you, or, or, like, because you were a little brat or something like that. But it's like, but I choose to love you because you're my kid, just because you're my kid, and I love you. And that's kind of a thing that you feel from All Might, or like, or even like your friends, where, like, if you have friends who maybe sometimes they get on your nerves, like, yeah, but you're my friend. And those are just pure and nice relationships, and I really like that for Deku as a foundation for his character.
Yeah, it definitely puts Hizashi into a weird spot if he ever bothers to appear.
I really so want that the explanation is that just because we don't see him doesn't mean he's not talking to his mom to Deku's mom actively. Doesn't mean that they don't have conversations, and it doesn't mean that everyone is not completely on the same page and they just realize he has long work hours. It's no big deal. The train, we had the travel ban. He just couldn't come visit. Like, what, whatever. But he's still sending the checks. I would love that if it's just that simple. He's just a dude.
Yeah, it's just like Deku has been off screen phoning him every night, actually.
Yeah, we just didn't see it. Like, why would you need to see it? Screw you.
Yeah.
I hope it's not that, actually, but I kind of also really hope it's that.
Look, like, there are a couple of answers to what could be the deal with Deku's dad, and I hate most of them.
Yeah.
But anyway, is there anything...
No, that's it for Shinso.
Topic? Yeah, but is there any other topic you want to jump to? Because my notes pretty much end here.
Yeah, because we talked about Uraraka. We did that. Mm-hmm. There's really not much to say about Bakugo and Todoroki's fight. It's just more of Bakugo's kind of characterization, more of Deku. And I guess the final thing I want to talk about is now with, I would assume, pretty much like 90% of the Endeavor storyline expressed to the audience. How did you feel about Endeavor going back to this section? Was there anything about his characterization that you maybe felt like this doesn't connect, or was it like, or did it add more depth and weight to the things he did? Because now Endeavor's kind of more of a tragic, terrible person, where it's like, oh, we know that he could have been a good person, and there's sections where he was a good dad, but now he's this horrible father who only believes in like power and stuff. But it's also because he cared so much about his one kid, but also it has to do with power. And so it's like he kind of has this tragic element to it, but I still didn't feel like it excused anything he did or made me like sympathize with him. And it never made me feel like, well, Todoroki, you're just blowing things out of proportion.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's actually an interesting thing that you mentioned, because yes, Endeavor is kind of a tragic character, but rereading this, I felt no sympathy for him. Like,
yeah.
Not at all. He is a terrible, terrible human being. And you just get it, even from the way Hori draws him, and I tweeted about it today, like, you know, the only reason Hori made Endeavor a better person was so he could stop drawing the evil cross-hatching. Because that must have taken too much time. But yeah, like, you just see that Endeavor is so, like, one-track mind on just surpassing All Might for a reason that we're not even really given. It's just he wants to surpass All Might, and so he's a dick. But it's interesting to see how well it still connects to the overall narrative, because you do have little moments where, like, Endeavor seems to wake up a little. Like when Todoroki tells him, I completely forgot about you. Like, you were not a factor in me using my fireside. And you get this little panel of Endeavor just kind of being shocked at it. And that I thought was interesting to think about, because Endeavor is, in this sports festival, we are kind of led to believe that he is a confident man, completely set in his idea. Whereas in hindsight, you realize he was just this completely deranged dude who was barely keeping it together. And who, you know, himself eventually was turned pretty much at the drop of a hat, right? Like, his rehabilitation starts very suddenly.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see how the seeds of that were already here. And also, like, just another thing I liked about Endeavor here is, like, how obviously terrible he is to All Might. And All Might's just like, okay, dude. Like,
I guess you don't want to go to lunch, huh?
Yeah. It's like, Endeavor's just like, piss off, I want to take a leak. And All Might is like, oh, you sure, buddy? Like, we haven't talked in it. Like, it's also weird to me, like, and this is something that I don't like in MHA, actually. It's time seems to be so not of the essence, because All Might's like, we haven't seen each other in 10 years. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, how are you number 1 and number 2 respectively, and you've not seen each other in 10 years? How does that even work?
Right.
Like, that is so weird to me. Also because, like, 10 years, that is half the time of which Endeavor has been crazy, right? Like,
yeah.
How does that work? It's so weird to me.
Yeah, it's a bit strange. I mean, it's that kind of aloofness that the cast sometimes just emanates, where it's just like, oh yeah, I guess I won't question these things, or oh yeah, I guess we just haven't spoken in 10 years. It's like, really?
Yeah. It's just odd. But, yeah, aside from that, I think Endeavor actually remains pretty consistent here. Like, you get someone who is just completely, like, focused on this one terrible goal, and everything else kind of doesn't matter. Like, you even get it in the way he talks to people and to how he behaves, where, like, he doesn't care about anything that does not immediately influence his goals. Like, even with Deku, he's like, go out and beat my kid. And then he's just half-assed goes like, sorry if I was mean. And then tries to walk off.
I saw we.
Yeah, he's just this, he's just this giant refrigerator man.
Yeah.
He's just like, ugh, I don't care about anything that doesn't help my kid stop being a little bitch. But also sorry if I'm rude.
Yeah, like, which is interesting. It's like the professional side of him like leaking out.
Yeah, exactly. Where he's like he's internalized that he has to cover up his bad sides with like professionalism. Whereas like, please almost kill my kid. He's being stupid and doesn't want to go along with my eugenics. But also sorry if I inconvenienced you. Like, it's interesting also because like you also have like, this typical Japanese politeness to it. Where he's like, I am sorry that I was blunt. Please beat my child. So yeah, no, that was definitely interesting. And it's also like with the entire context of also, of course, Toya and that whole ordeal. Yeah, you kind of can see that he is so jaded. Like, he is so unwilling to let emotion be a part of his life, because his emotional investment in Toya ended up being so like backwards that it catalyzed like 3 separate family tragedies within his family. Like, it's really crazy to think about. And of course, from a meta perspective, it's just always gonna be insane to look at early Endeavor and think like, this man is like a secondary main character in a way, almost.
Yeah, he's the third perspective character next to Deku and Shigaraki. He's the hero perspective character.
Yeah, which is just pretty crazy. But yeah, I think that's my take on Endeavor for this section, unless you have anything to add.
Yeah, I guess I just had one question, which, because I know you've talked in the Shonen and Chill podcast how you've actually, you used to have the question of like, I really need it explained how we go from I want to be the best to eugenics. And then recently you said, actually, I think it's actually better we don't know, and that it does start from something so mundane. And I don't know I don't think you'd ever express that on your main channel. And I agree with you. That's how I've always saw Endeavor, is that I always like in stories where things get so bad, and then it's like, where did this start? It's like, actually just started from a man who was so insecure and had the power to take steps that led to this. He had the power to basically throw money at his problems, and it started with like, just a little arranged marriage, but I still I still treat her well, I still love her, stuff like that. And then it goes into, but then we have the kid, and in fact, you know what, just having a child and just doing our best with it, and he's into it too. This is a father-son bonding time, baby. And then it just gets worse and worse and worse until it's this. And then And I really like that, and I just didn't know what your current thoughts on that are. I didn't know if they'd switched or anything like that. Do you still want a kind of like a deeper reason behind all the horrible things he's done, or do you think it's better that it's something so simple?
Well, I kind of want both in a way, where I do want to see Endeavor's like high school life, and I want to see what started it. I want to see what was it that catalyzed him to be this obsessed with being the best. But when we do get to see it, I don't want it to be anything super dramatic. I want it to be really mundane. Like, honestly, if we never get to see it, I will not be super mad, because then I'll just be like, he is just supposed to be adult Bakugo in a way. Like, he's just supposed to be worst case scenario Bakugo.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine. And if we do get a flashback, obviously that'll be cool. We'll get to see young Endeavor, which I think would be a really interesting perspective. But then I don't want him to be like, he grew up in a terrible home, and he's just used to solving his problems with either money or his fists. And it's like, I don't really want it. I kind of want him to just have been this normal person, except super ambitious. And I kind of want him to remain this cautionary tale of how reckless ambition at the cost of everything else can really destroy you.
And in a society that's so extreme that allows for you to go this far.
Yeah, exactly. In a society that also encourages you, right? Because it's I have a video coming up about masculinity in MHA.
Ooh.
And one thing that comes up in that is that Bakugo in a way falls into this hyper meritocratic mindset where like as a man and as a person in the My Hero Society, you are only worth as much as you can produce or as much as you can contribute. And Endeavor kind of ends up being the extreme case of that, where like he seems to tie just the worth of his existence to whether or not he can be the best, like a complete binary thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when he realizes that he cannot be the best, he has to negotiate the idea of, okay, according to my mindset, I am worthless now. And then he negotiates it into, no, I don't have to be the best. My child has to be the best. My DNA has to carry greatness. So yeah, if we ever do get to see his backstory, I just don't want it to be too dramatic. And if we don't get to see his backstory, I won't be too mad about it.
Fair enough.
And I think that his portion here in the sports festival just kind of hammers that home, where he is just a terrible person, and that is all he needed to be for this section of the story. And in certain ways, he will never stop being a terrible person. Like, he can make amends for it, but he will always just remain the guy who, for a reason so mundane, ruined multiple lives for pretty much no purpose, aside from a petty vendetta against All Might. So yeah, that's where I stand currently, if that answers your question.
Yeah, cool. I just thought it would be interesting to talk about. So yeah, but other than that, I don't think I have anything left to talk about with the arc. I guess we can go into final thoughts unless you have something.
Yeah, no, I don't have any other big topics. So, final thoughts. What's the vibe, Ian?
So coming into this video, I said to you that I think that the anime elevates pretty much everything in the manga to like an 11, with the amazing music, the fact that the every episode would basically kind of like how you talked about with early MHA anime, where it would kind of have like an idea or a theme that it would kind of focus itself on. So every episode kind of felt like it was accomplishing something. Every episode felt like it had some big, not Sakuga moment, but just a big moment that you feel like, okay, that episode was worth watching for that little hype moment alone. And I think for a good majority of this arc, you need that, because obviously the logic doesn't really hold up to scrutiny. And so if you're going to want to root for these characters, you need something to grasp onto. And if you can't grasp onto the logic of the situation of being like, wow, they made these point-for-point things, and now I can see how far they got and be proud of that, then you want to go for the spectacle. You want to see just how hard they grit their teeth, how hard they explode themselves, how fast they run. And I think the anime has that feeling throughout the whole time. It also expands on sections that the manga skips over. Like, we actually get to... It's crazy to me to think that Momo's entire character arc, like the start of it with Tokuyami like just bashing on her and getting her out of the arena before she can ever even do anything, that's not even in the manga. It's off-screened.
Yeah.
But that's where her whole character arc starts, and we don't even get to see it in the manga. So the anime for season 2, as I've said multiple times, just elevated the material to the point where, as far as the anime goes, and I rewatched it recently, it's basically like a 9 or a 10 out of 10 for me. It has the hype factor, it has the emotion factor, it has all that stuff. The manga, I think, has the structure of that, and thus makes it one of the stronger school arcs. I would say with the exception of Culture Festival, which I think is pretty perfect for me. But I would say for the sports festival, all the pros we said are either, with the exception of the Uraraka fight and the Deku fight, are lesser than the anime, and so I would say it either has a 7 or a 7.5. And on my ranking scales, a 7 is a story where I would go back to certain parts of it, but I'm not really just gonna drop the hat and read the arc again. I really don't feel like I'll go back to Sports Festival in the manga unless I'm just rereading the whole series. The closest I would do is reread the Deku versus Todoroki fight, because the art's gorgeous and it's very close to as enjoyable as the anime. So 7 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I think that is completely fair. Like, I think I end up on a 7-ish as well, because it ends up being... While reading this arc, one thought that kept coming up to me was, this is not a battle shonen, right? Like, this is not about the fights, because the fights themselves are very glossed over. So much of this arc is just people talking about their thoughts regarding what ambition and what drive really mean to them. And so, while I think that is very cool, it's hard to live up to the anime where they have that plus the fights, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd say a 7 ends up being fair, just because this is a battle shonen by genre, and this arc kind of goes a little too soft on the battles outside of the two main ones. So yeah, that's, I think, my final verdict on it. Like, manga is the inferior version, but it's still perfectly fine. 7 out of 10.
Yeah, it still has the heart of MHA, which is kind of what we keep going back to with these earlier arcs, is like, when it hits the heart of MHA, it's like 10 out of 10. Like, we nailed it. This is what the show's about, or the series is about. But Horikoshi in the manga department hasn't necessarily, he's very close to the art on the art level, but his art level, consistency level, and just overall moment to moment enjoyment hasn't reached that yet as far as the manga is concerned. I think we're going to get to that pretty soon. Like, I remember the Stain arc being moment to moment very enjoyable, but with everything we've read so far, I feel like moment to moment it passes from really great to, okay, you know, maybe skim this line, it's just exposition and there's not really much to look at on screen. Like, I was doing that a lot with this arc. Like, when they would explain how the rounds would work, or when characters were going through their thought process, the art wasn't necessarily that expressive, and I don't just want to read information that I already know. So, if it's not going to entertain me in some way. So.
Okay. Well, in that case, I believe we've got this one in the bag.
Heck yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching. Why don't you plug your stuff, Ian, as usual?
Yeah, so I am IanWaffles on YouTube and Twitter. I basically talk about anime characters, mostly MHA, and then the other half, I guess, cute girls. That's just kind of how it worked out, is Kyoto Animation female characters. So I have a video on Overhaul, a video on Eri, a video on Rika from Love Chunibyo and Other Delusions, and a video on Mugi from K-On! So if any of those characters interest you and you kind of want to deep dive kind of perspective on them with some excellent editing by my editor Core, who also has a great channel of anime stuff, you can check him out, then if any of that interests you, definitely check it out. And I'm currently working on a Kingdom Hearts 2 video, which is kind of anime adjacent, so definitely look forward to that. It's my next big project. So thank you very much for having me on here again, Oceans. It's always a blast.
Hey, no problem. As I said, I absolutely love getting to talk to you like this. We text on Twitter, even though I say this every time. I just suck so much at texting back. I'm so sorry about that.
Oh, no, you're fine. But it's not even that you're bad. It's that you have a life.
I guess, now that I moved out as well. But I am just always happy to have you here. And as I said, I think the people are too.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, every time one of these episodes drop, we always have people in the comments going, "Oh, it's Ian! Let's go!"
Well, I'm glad to be here. So thank you very much. So yeah, you guys have a great one.
In that case, take care, everyone, and see you around. Bye-bye.
Bye.